Watercolors, featuring the art of CJs. 'Tis the season for road trip. Kids in the back seat. Are we there yet? Hated that. Music from the Rippingtons. Talia with you. Happy summertime. First day of summer, by the way. We still got 4 more days, so that means we're technically still in spring. But I'm feeling summer and summer-like happiness. And music here on Watercolors kind of contributes to that, too. Contemporary jazz, the great. Late Wayman Tisdale. Ain't no stopping us now. We are Watercolors.
Mesmerizing melodies and captivating grooves. A world awash in watercolors. Sirius XM.
The fine vocal work of Frank McComb. Brand new music, it's a brand new day. I'm Talia, all about the music when it comes to a Music Monday. Let's make room for Ronnie Jordan and Roy Ayers. Love this one, Mystic Voyage on Watercolors.
Would you mind taking notes for this part so I can just copying them off you? You want me to tap this?
Remember 3 points.
You know what? I'm going to strangle you after this. I hope I'm not on the mic soon. The town clerk has threatened me.
Justifiably so.
Yeah? Okay. Good evening. He said it's on. Oh, louder? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Seeing that there is a quorum, we are going to start the special town meeting of June 16, 2025, and I am now calling this meeting to order. The elected town moderator, Jim Engel, was involved in an accident late last week and is unable to moderate this town meeting. Jim is recovering well at home, and we all wish him a speedy recovery. Nonetheless, due to his unavailability for tonight's meeting, I, Andrea Papillon-Barris, as the duly appointed town clerk, am authorized by Chapter 39, Section 14 of the general laws to preside at this town meeting until a temporary moderator is elected and sworn. Once elected, the temporary moderator's duties are to preside over this town meeting until the meeting is dissolved. The first order of business is to elect a temporary moderator for this meeting. Any person offering a nomination shall state the name and address of the nominee and may make a brief statement of the nominee's qualifications to serve as moderator. After all the nominations have been made, I will recognize any voter who wishes to be heard on the nominations. We will then proceed directly to an electronic vote, and the candidate with the most votes will be elected. Are there any nominations for temporary moderator? I'll recognize Charles Serpitsky, Select Board Chair, for nomination of George. Oh, you're going to nominate him.
This doesn't work?
Is that on?
Great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Charles Serpitsky. I'm the chairman of the Select Board. I nominate George Hall thank you, of 74 Northridge Road to serve as temporary moderator for this meeting. George Hall is an attorney with over 30 years of municipal law experience who served as town council for Ipswich for 16 years, from 2008 until his retirement in June of 2024. During this time, Mr. Hall had consistently provided clear and concise advice and guidance on a myriad number of legal issues, including many that arose in this forum. In addition, George has advised and supported town moderators not only in Ipswich, but in Belmont, Bedford, and Wentham for many years. He also served as the elected town moderator for the town of Topsfield from 2012 to 2015. He stepped down from that position in anticipation of his move to Ipswich. Before Mr. Engel's accident, he had planned to recuse himself as a moderator for discussion of Article 1 on tonight's warrant. This was due to his long involvement in deliberations as a member of the Water Subcommittee. He had made arrangements with Mr. Hall to step in as temporary moderator for this article. When it became apparent after the accident and over the weekend that he would be unable to perform the duties of moderator tonight, Mr. Engel suggested and recommended Mr. Hall serve as the temporary moderator for the entire meeting. The Select Board is in agreement with this recommendation and support Mr. Hall's nomination as a temporary town manager by unanimous vote.
Second.
We urge the citizens to support this nomination. If elected, Mr. Hall will serve as a volunteer and receive no compensation for these duties.
Are there any other nominations? Well, if there are no other nominations, I'm asking George Hall if he will accept the temporary position of moderator.
Well, to ask people to try to find seats and then do the electronic vote.
Okay. So if everyone could try to find a seat, please.
There's some here.
Okay, so seeing that George Hall has accepted the nomination, we will now call for a vote. We will have a 30-second window on the vote. Is it ready? Okay, the voting window is now open. One for yes and two for no, please. Please close the voting. Okay. I declare George Hall has been elected as temporary town moderator for this meeting. I can't see the vote. I don't even know what. Excuse me, Kevin, they're wondering if they'd like to see the vote. So 435 votes. So now I will swear in George Hall. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to carry out the duties of the office impartially, faithfully, and to the best of your ability?
I do.
I gladly turn this over to you now. What was that?
Yes, a little bit like normal. I tried to go forward. So you'll see yes and no.
Good evening, everybody. If you will, if those who are able will rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
I recommend that we do a test with the clickers to actually know that they're working.
We will do that.
Thank you.
Can we turn this down? I have a loud voice, so you don't have to amplify me quite that much. Welcome, everybody. Just a few preliminaries. I am going to try to run this meeting in accordance with a lot of the rules established by Mr. Engel, including lengths of time promised to speakers, and I will try to do it in the spirit of the way he would do it as best I can. As Jim has done, we have 3 microphones this evening, a pro microphone and a con microphone for relative to the main motion, and a microphone in the center aisle for those who have questions. And by questions, I mean real questions, things you don't have the answer to, and not questions, arguments disguised as questions. We've set aside some seating here in the front, and if I could ask you, sir, to vacate that seat and choose another one, because these seats here that are marked speakers should be the line for the 2 podiums. So if you plan to speak to a question, please come down to the front. If the podium is busy, take a seat, and we'll recognize in turn from that as the waiting areas for the 2 podiums. When the podiums are empty and nobody is seated in those seats, I'm going to go directly to a vote. Nobody may speak until I have recognized them. That means that if you want to make a motion, you have to come to one of the microphones and be recognized. That includes moving the question. You can shout it out from the seats all you want. I will not recognize it unless somebody is standing at a microphone and has been recognized by the moderator. Pursuant to the town bylaws, a motion to terminate debate, sometimes referred to as moving the question, may only be made when the speaker has not already made other remarks. It's sort of a rule against trying to get the last word. You can't make a speech and then move the question. So when you come to the microphone for any reason, and I recognize you, please state your name and your address, and if you seek to terminate debate, just say I move the question. Electronic voting, you all have one of these. If you will take it out and look at it, you will see in the upper right-hand corner a little screen. When a vote is called and the voting is open, meaning the machine has been turned on so that it is ready to record your vote, you press 1 for yes and 2 for no, and a 1 or a 2 will be displayed in that little screen, and that is how you know that your vote is being recorded. If you don't see a 1 or a 2, I mean, you can press it more than once. You can vote early and often, but it will only record the last vote, the last button that you pushed. You can change your mind during the 30 seconds. If you press 1 by mistake, you could press 2 if that was your intention. But when the vote is called, whatever is in that little window is going to be counted as your vote. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So let's do a trial run. And I'm not going to ask the usual Red Sox question. I'm going to ask you, will we have a 14th consecutive rainy Saturday or not? If you're a pessimist, press 1 for yes. And if you're an optimist, press 2 for no. And the voting is open. Is it going to rain next Saturday? When the vote closes, it'll display the final tally. We're going to use 30 seconds. I'm going to call when there are 5 seconds left. 5 seconds. Close the voting. So, yeah, well, we're mostly optimistic about it. Yeah. I cannot, it is is it 375 to 213? Is that what that says? Okay. With that, we are going to proceed directly to Article 1. Is there any action? The chair recognizes Michael Doherty, Select Board Member Michael Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and through you to the members. Before we begin tonight, Mr. Moderator, I just would like to express thanks and appreciation to our town clerk, Andrea Papalamberis, who did a great job opening the meeting tonight. If we could give her a quick round of applause. And Mr. Moderator, I'd like to thank you for stepping up to the plate and moderating our meeting tonight at the 11th hour. So thank you as well. With that, Mr. Moderator, I, Michael S. Doherty of the Ipswich Select Board, move 1, to appropriate the sum of $50 million to survey, design, permit, and construct a new water treatment plant and make improvements and modification to related water system components and facilities, including the payment of costs incidental or relative thereto, and 2, to raise this appropriation by authorizing the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, to issue bonds or serial notes under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, as amended.
Motion has been made and seconded. Just a procedural note, Jim Engel had told presenters they would get 8 minutes. I'm going to honor that. All other speakers tonight will get 3. So, Mr. Doherty, your 8 minutes is...
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So great to see everyone out here tonight. You clearly marked down this date on your calendar at our annual town meeting, so thank you. And this article, Article 1, about the water treatment plant is why we're all here tonight. And for those of you who were here at the annual town meeting, my apologies, but what I'm going to do is briefly repeat exactly why we are here. So back in 2020, the Water Department hired a firm to do an assessment of all of our water and wastewater infrastructure and capital. They did horizontal capital, like pipes in the grounds, and they did vertical capital, like water treatment plants or buildings. And one of the things that really popped out in that survey that was done was the existing water treatment plant. It was shown many things. One of the most important things is that it was past its very useful life. Now, to put this into perspective, the water treatment plant is a very critical piece of infrastructure for our water system, because not only does it treat up to 72% of the drinking water that folks in town consume, but it also charges all of our fire suppression systems. So the water that's in your fire hydrants is done through the water treatment plant. And unfortunately, our current water treatment plant is well past a decade's worth of its useful life. So in 2021, the commissioners came to town meeting to get an appropriation for a feasibility study. AECom, who is a company that we have been working with in the past on many other projects, took the project on, and through that money that was authorized for the feasibility study, put together a project. Well, the project cost, which we thought was going to be about $35 million for the last 18 months, most recently, which got to 30% design phase, ended up having a 42% increase to $50 million. And unfortunately, at our annual town meeting, we only had 35 in the article, which subsequently at our annual town election also only had 35, because once it's appropriated or authorized, at town meeting, it then has to be approved at the ballot. So the commissioners working with the water subcommittee and the water department decided to take no action at town meeting, annual town meeting, so that we can come back to you tonight to ask for the full amount after appropriately going through the numbers thoroughly with the fine-tooth comb. The reason why we have it held now instead of later on or in the fall is because one of the goals is to capture SRF, State Revolving Fund money, to help loan 10 of the $50 million. So The state has a revolving fund that it does lend out to municipalities at a lower than usual interest rate. In our case, it's going to be at least 2%, possibly even lower, for the first $10 million of the project. Additionally, we have the ability in future years to apply for an additional $10 million and continue on in $10 million increments. This is a lot of money, and this reflects a significant decrease in the cost over the life of the project, but we had to get this appropriated by June 30th in order to qualify for the SRF funding. So a little bit about the treatment plant itself. The treatment plant, I already had mentioned to you, is a very critical piece of infrastructure that takes care of not only our drinking water, but our fire suppression. Currently, it does have the capacity to handle all of our water demands, and it does include future growth, but this new treatment plant will include additional future growth. Additionally, one of the things that I like about this project is that this new water treatment plant will have the ability to offline certain parts of the plant while not losing capacity to be able to distribute water to the consumers via drinking water or fire suppression, meaning that the water department team will be able to do regular maintenance to this treatment plant better than it can with our current existing plant, which is huge, meaning if there's a certain failure at a certain part of the plant, we can remedy it a lot easier with this new treatment plant. This new treatment plant will have the technologies needed to help obviously make sure that we have clean drinking water, but also tackle the very growing concern of PFAS, which are forever chemicals that are in our water. Some of the benefits about the site itself is that the site is going to be located on already owned town property, which in some communities can be a struggle, but in our community, it won't be. One of the things I would like to address, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but one of the contributing factors to the 42% increase from 35 million to 50 million is ground prep. So unfortunately, there is additional rock that wasn't anticipated on the existing site, which will be addressed through the additional monies that will be approved tonight. We also have additional monies allocated for things like a brand new generator. Originally, we were hoping that our existing electric light department would be able to be the backup, and it was suggested to us by the professionals that something as advanced in technology as this new water treatment plant should have its own generator designated for backups, especially considering how critical piece of an infrastructure that it is. Additionally, we saw an increased cost in electrical, which is something that not only are we seeing an increased cost on the public sector, but in the private sector as well. And most importantly, and I want to be very clear about this because there have been some concerns, well, we're still only at 30% design phase. And from what the professionals tell us, 30% is really where the meat and potatoes are on the cost driving factors. You really know what your driving costs are going to be at 30%, so you can give a very well-educated guess on what the final product is going to be, even at that low of a percentage. But within this project cost estimate are multiple layers of contingencies. So if we do see a spike in increased costs, for whatever the case may be, we do have extra monies. Now, my hope, being optimistic like those who think that we're not going to have a 14th weekend of rain, is that we won't have to activate those contingencies, meaning that even though we authorize $50 million tonight, we may not actually have to bond for the full $50 million. But if we do, it is there in case we need to, so this project can move forward. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to touch on, but there's also, if not already online, there will be a list, a 13-page itemized list of all of the expenses for this project. And in layman's terms, it's a very important piece of infrastructure. You know, it was said to me a little while ago in the past year or two that Ipswich is having a tough time getting going with its multitude of projects that we have in the pipeline. My thought is that once we get that first peg in the ground, that we'll start seeing a snowball effect of these critical infrastructure projects. And I believe tonight is the ability for us to put that first peg in the ground. We ask tonight, by a unanimous support of the Select Board, the Finance Committee, and all other towns, boards, and committees, including the Water Subcommittee, that you support this project very enthusiastically, and that subsequently on Tuesday, June 24th, you vote in favor at the town election. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. The chair would recognize Finance Committee member Ken Swenson for the Finance Committee recommendation.
Ken Swenson, member of the Finance Committee, 449 Linebrook Road. Finance Committee voted unanimously to support this article. A yes vote means we support the appropriating $50 million to survey, design, permit, construct a new water treatment plant, and make improvements and modifications related to the water systems.
A no vote means we should not do this and suffer with the existing one. There's no impact to our real estate taxes. The funds required to pay down the debt issued to fund this project will be paid by the water ratepayers. In anticipation of this project, the Water Department has increased our water rates the last few years and will continue to do so in future years. The average annual residential water bill in fiscal year 26 will be $928. When this project was initially estimated at $35 million in fiscal year 28, the average annual residential water bill would have been $1,488. The additional $15 million that's been added to bring it to $50 million will increase the fiscal year 28 average annual residential water bill by $173. Thank you.
Is there a recommendation from the school committee?
Diana Freehand, 12
Could you just
Spillers
state your name,
Lane.
please, and your address?
Yeah, Diana Freehand, 12 Spillers Lane, Chair of the School Committee. School Committee recommends 7-0.
Thank you. All right, the floor is open. Does anybody wish to be heard for or against this article? Sir? Yep. Name and address, please.
I'm Evan Parker, 12 Mill Road. I'm fourth generation in my family. I lived in Ipswich, 27 Turkey Shore Road. This $50 million project is going backwards in time. I'm sure most of you are aware of what the wastewater treatment plant outflow pipe in Greenwood Creek has caused closure of the Division of Marine Fisheries, closed N5 Ipswich River. Trust me, this is going somewhere. To close the Ipswich River. So this is a new environmental friendly proposal I propose to the town, and I love this town dearly. Stop the outflow pipe going to Greenwood Creek, set up a 1.2 million gallon per day reverse osmosis filtration system, the wastewater treatment plant, then pump the finished 99.9% pure water 1,500 feet up to the new constructed water tank to the top of Spring Street. All our infrastructure land is already in place. It's ready to go. It's a plug-and-play system. Ordered from the factory. You place these in place, involved. You need 6 200-gallon per day units, 200,000 gallon per day units. We're perfectly fit in Ipswich. The water that is currently closed down the Ipswich River for clamming is clean and drinkable. The science is there, the documentation is there. Why is the town dumping it out? As many of you know, I'm a huge advocate for shellfish aquaculture. And some of you may recognize my name. I'm one of the 7 applicants that were wrongly denied of the grant from Linda Alkin's Select Board in November. No worries. There's 14 of us clampers that are applying in September, and those new grants will be approved, and we'll be joining the 13 million a year shellfish aquaculture in Massachusetts. Google it right now, it's a fact, look it up. Anyways, moving on. Reverse osmosis system from the water treatment plant. The wastewater treatment plant existing would instead take the water. In Colorado, Arizona, Texas, California laws already exist. Massachusetts is almost there. We're ready to go. We just have to take the 800,000 gallons a day that goes into Greenwood Creek, take that, and Ipswich produces 160 million gallons per year, right? And the town would just have to build an RO system. It would reduce the pressure off of the wastewater treatment plant. It's a good, reliable source of clean, drinkable water that's already clean, right? I understand this. And the fact is, I'm already given last week from a reliable source that works from the state, the town is already being forced that we have to take the pipe, the wastewater treatment plant in the future, It's already in the works, and it has to happen. The water from Greenwood Creek has to go back to Bull Brook.
Okay.
This is a fact. Hold on, stop.
No,
It
your
has
time
to
is
go
up.
back to the plant.
Sir, your time is
and
up.
it has to go back to a sand pit. This is a fact. It was already given to me.
Your time is up, sir.
And this water has to go back. So basically, we're going to take from Peter to Paul. All right?
No, I'm not going to let you finish. You had 3 minutes. You've taken 4. Please sit down, sir. Okay, 3 minutes is actually a pretty long time to make a point if you get right to it, okay? Sir, state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. R.J. Lyman, 41 Turkey Shore Road. I call the question.
Okay, Mr. Lyman has moved to terminate debate. Terminating debate requires a 2/3 vote. Seeing that nobody else is waiting in line to speak, I would ask if the motion to terminate debate could be declared unanimous. Is there objection? Okay, there's an objection. Get out your clickers, please. If you wish to move to terminate debate, press 1. If you wish to continue debating the question, press 2. Voting is open. Five seconds. Stop. Okay, there being 530 votes in the affirmative and 88 in the negative, debate is terminated. So we go to the main motion, Mr. Doherty's main motion to appropriate the sum of $50 million for the water filtration plant. And if you favor the expenditure, the borrowing authorization, press 1. If you oppose it, press 2. The question requires a 2/3 majority vote, and the voting is open. Five more seconds. Stop. There being 554 votes in the affirmative and 80 votes in the negative, the question is passed. The borrowing is authorized. Article 2, please. Is there any action? It passed by 2/3. Anybody can do the math. Ms. Morad, for the
Yes.
Planning Board, you have the floor.
Thank you. I, Tony Morad, Chair of the Planning Board, move to amend Section 9D of the Town of Ipswich Protective Zoning Bylaw as set forth in Article 2 of the warrant of the special town meeting.
Is there a second? Second. Select Board recommendation. Select Board votes unanimously, recommends unanimously in favor of the main motion. Finance Committee. Finance Committee is unanimous in favor of the main motion. Ms. Morad or Mr. Minoyan, you have 8 minutes. You're not obligated to use all of them.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And may I address here from this station?
You may.
Thank you. Good evening to Ipswich Town Meeting. I'm Alan Manoyan, Director of the Ipswich Department of Planning and Community Development. Article 2, amend zoning bylaws, Section 9D, floodplain. I'll read the summary quickly. The town of Ipswich received official notification on January the 8th, 2025, from U.S. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, that the revised preliminary flood insurance study and flood insurance rate map for Essex County, Massachusetts have been finalized. The town of Ipswich FIS report, that's the flood insurance study, and firm will become effective on July 8th, 2025. Therefore, it is required to amend the Town of Ipswich Flood District zoning bylaw before the effective date of July 8th, 2025, at the 2025 special spring town meeting scheduled for January the 16th, so as to be compliant with the updated FEMA floodplain map. As stated in the January 8th, 2025 communication from FEMA, communities that fail to enact the necessary floodplain management regulations will be suspended from participating in the National Flood Insurance Program, and subject to the prohibitions contained in Section 202A of the Flood Disaster Protection Act of 1973, as amended, and 44 CFR Part 59.24. Yes? Did everybody take that in? Okay. It's this simple, folks. Every 10 years, our floodplain maps, the national floodplain maps, are updated. 10 years ago, someone was here doing this, okay? 10 years from now, in 2035, someone will be here doing this. This is a routine flood map update. As you can see, if you look up on the screen, it was a thorough process that actually takes 10 years to update. So the discovery meeting phase took place in April 2016. The engineering and modeling phase, 2018-2019, flood risk review phase, 2020, preliminary map release phase. This is when they released it, when you could actually start taking a look at these things. That happened in 2021 through 2023. The 90-day appeal and comment period, fall-winter of 2023-24. The letter of final determination, and this is what we received this past January 8th, 2025, and the effective map date. The image you're looking at, if you go back to that other image, one more back, folks, yeah. This is just showing coastal, folks that own property up on the coastal parcels. This FEMA floodplain map update does not include the coastal panels, flood panels. They will do that as a next phase. So I just think that's important for folks to know who may reside and have property up on the coastal plains and marshes, not included for this phase. Next slide. This just gives you a sense. Any of us all now can go. It's a great site. If you just Google Flood Map Changes Viewer, Flood Map Changes Viewer, FEMA, you will be able to go on there. You can click on the layers. Look at the current layer, right, that was enacted 10 years ago. You can then click on the current revised layer, and you can superimpose and see the changes, what's happened with those floodplain maps. Take a look. If you think your property is somewhere, contained in that. And the final one. This just goes through some of the sections that are updated. This is a good thing, because what they're doing is they're just tightening up to make sure we're working more closely together departmentally. We now will have a designated floodplain administrator. I just found out that'll be me. Whoever serves, no, right? Whoever serves, but this is a good thing. And then again, just making sure that we work closely with our Zoning Board of Appeals, our code enforcement officer, and really make sure we're working more as a team and working, most importantly, with the residents and taxpayers and property owners that have property in the floodplain and to do everything we can to support you folks on however that affects you. So this is simply, again, it's just time to vote to update our floodplain maps. We will be in good standing. If any of you go to get mortgages, you will get your flood insurance, yes, which is a good thing. And as we all know, Ipswich is a watery place, is it not? It is. So we will be well protected by voting in favor of this. I thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Minoyan. Anybody else want to be heard on this? Any questions? Ask your questions now. There will be a quiz in just a few minutes, a few seconds. Mr. Lyman.
R.J. Lyman, 41 Turkey Shore Road. I move the question.
Mr. Lyman has moved the question. Considering that there's nobody lined up to speak, I would once again ask if the motion to terminate debate can be adopted unanimously. Is there objection? There's an objection. Let's get out your clickers. If you want to terminate the debate, press 1. If you want to continue discussing the motion on the floor, press 2. Voting is open. Five seconds. Stop it. There being 600 votes in the affirmative and 34 votes in the negative, the motion is adopted. Is this 2/3? By 2/3 vote, to the extent it requires one. Okay, Article 3. Oh! I stand corrected. We have not yet voted on the article. We moved the question. I got ahead of myself. We now proceed directly to Ms. Morad's motion to amend the floodplain bylaw. Those in favor of Ms. Morad's motion, please press 1. Those opposed, please press 2. Voting is open. Stop. Yep, there we go. Okay, there being 591 votes in the affirmative and 46 votes in the negative, the motion is adopted by 2/3. Article 3, any action? Ms. Alexson. Go ahead. We need a mic. Do we have a microphone? Go.
All set? Thank you. I, Linda Alexson, Select Board, move to authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court to amend the Town Charter, Chapter 620 of the Acts of 1966 as amended, as set forth in Article 3 of the warrant for the special town meeting.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. This article may look familiar. Article 11 of the 2022 annual town meeting was the same home rule petition we have before us now to remove the town manager residency requirement from our charter. That article passed overwhelmingly, 402 to 58, and was submitted to the state for legislative approval as required by the home rule process. Our town manager resigned several weeks ago, and we began discussing next steps, only to discover that the residency requirement was still in the charter. Thinking it was an oversight that the charter wasn't updated, we looked into it more closely. Unbeknownst to the town, the 2022 home rule petition was never acted on at the state level, nor was the town ever notified. So in order to effectuate this change, a new town meeting vote is required, and the state legislature approval process must be redone. Why change the charter? As a reminder, the town manager is required to become an Ipswich resident by the end of their 4th year of employment. The manager recently resigned, and we will soon begin a search for a replacement. A survey last month asking other communities about town manager and administrator residency found that out of the 27 respondents, only 3 have such a requirement, 2 of which have petitioned the state legislature for a change similar to what Ipswich did in 2022. The 3rd town, Athol, requires their manager to live within a 15-mile radius of their town borders. Additional research has shown that only 14 of the 301 Massachusetts towns have any residency requirements. Our last 2 managers did not live in Ipswich, and I say without hesitation that never presented a problem. During emergencies or urgent situations, we could always rely on them for information and updates, sometimes even during their vacations. Their zip code never interfered with their availability or engagement. It has been said that our manager must live within town boundaries to have skin in the game. While budgets and borrowing and resulting tax increases are approved by all of us here in this town meeting body, and most major policies require select board approval, I would offer just one recent example showing that the location of the manager's home is not related to job performance. Addressing the recent closure of the Ipswich River to shellfishing, the town manager was a strong advocate for Ipswich, quickly comprehending the scientific dilemma and magnitude of the impact on our clamors, our signature industry, our history, and our culture. He immediately convened meetings with federal and state legislators, including a stakeholder meeting with Congressman Moulton, Senator Tarr, Representative Kasner, and state agencies. And he requested a state budget earmark to study the potential relocation of the culprit wastewater outflow pipe. As we work towards resolution of this serious issue, we expect that the next manager to be just as proactively engaged. This is their job, their salary and benefits, their livelihood. It's their skin in our game. Mandating residency will limit the pool of qualified candidates who may apply for this position, as they weigh a hopefully long-term tenure against extraordinary job requirements and risks, such as uprooting their families, especially with school-age children, and consider what would happen if their contract is not renewed after they've made those life-altering changes. Requiring employees to move to Ipswich should come with certain related benefits, such as employer-provided housing or housing allowance and reimbursement of moving expenses, none of which are offered by the town as far as I'm aware. Residency is not required for any other town employees. The school superintendent is considered to be at an employment level equal to that of the town manager and does not live in Massachusetts. Many of our department heads live either out of town or out of state. This does not diminish their performance or their dedication to the residents of Ipswich. Finally, eliminating this requirement does not prevent qualified residents from applying. It is possible that preference might be given to a resident, but hiring decisions should be based on background, experience, and qualifications, not on where they live. This is about attracting and retaining the very best town manager to work for us, now and in the future. The Select Board unanimously supports this article and encourages you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alexson. Recommendations, so unanimously recommended by the Select Board. Finance Committee. The Finance Committee unanimously recommends favorable action on the motion. School Committee? The School Committee unanimously recommends favorable action. Anybody wish to be heard on the motion? Mr. Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Gary Champion, 3 Palomino Way. Ipswich elects 5 Ipswich residents to be Select Board members. Ipswich has charged the Select Board with appointing and overseeing town manager. The Select Board performing that duty requires applicants with the skills, character, and work ethic to fulfill this challenging full-time professional executive officer position. Where a town manager lives does not change having or not having what it takes to do this job. There are well-qualified people that will not apply for the Ipswich town manager position if it requires moving their families from where they want to live. The town manager living in Ipswich is subject to residents wanting their time when they are not working, nights and weekends, at the post office, the bank, their children's school events. A town manager's family may be subject to the same thing. The town manager's decisions on town employees could be made more difficult if they involve neighbors, parents with kids in the same class, people that attend the same church. The problems we have in Ipswich, like clean water, affordable housing, elementary schools, and public safety buildings, are not going to change or be resolved because of a town manager's zip code. Those responsibilities fall under town and school officials that we elect to represent us. In my opinion, this town meeting should approve this charter amendment as we did in the prior town meeting in 2022.
Thank you. Ma'am, name and address, please.
Joni Soffren, Agawam Village. I am certainly not going to suggest that all department heads be residents of this town. That would be crazy. However, I do believe that a town manager, the top dog in town, should be a resident of our community. They've got 4 years to come here if that's the case, if they're out of town. I would just like to remind folks, and for you folks who are new to town, and obviously welcome everybody, but a lot of you don't remember George Howe. George Howe served as our town manager for over 20 years, 24 years, I think. George Howe lives in town. George Howe sings in the church choir. George Howe attends events the town put on, and George Howe was seen. Since George's retirement several years ago, we haven't had a town manager who's lasted through 2 terms. It's been a revolving door. I firmly believe that to know the town, to feel the town is important, and somebody in Ipswich can do that. I am not going to suggest that we don't have a lot of local candidates who would certainly be qualified. In fact, I look in this room and I see some that would be great fits already. But I do strongly believe that by being in town, you've got skin in the game, as Linda liked to say. Your taxes are our taxes, our griefs are your griefs, and our joys are your joys. Somebody suggested who would want to live in the town that they're managing, because they might have to put up with a comment on the sidewalk. And sorry, Charlie, but in the words of Charlie Sapitsky, our esteemed chairman of the Board of Selectmen, has served our community in many capacities as a police officer, a police chief, Department of Public Safety director, and now as a wonderful selectman. I don't think Charlie's ever had any problem with walking down the street and having somebody say something inappropriate. So I don't believe that that should be even a part of the conversation. So I, myself, will vote no to support this, because I do believe that we have the talent in this town to run this town in a wonderful way. Thank you.
Anybody else care to be heard? All right, seeing nobody at the podiums or in line, we're going to go to a vote on the question. All those in favor of Ms. Alexson's motion to amend to petition the legislature for an amendment to the charter, please press 1. Those opposed to that motion, please press 2. The voting is now open. Five seconds. Stop. There being 506 votes in the affirmative and 135 votes in the negative, the motion is adopted by a 2/3 vote. Article 4, any action?
Mr. Moderator, I have a point of order question
Yes.
on this one. In communications with Mr. Engel, the petitioner and I were given permission by him that she could divide up or yield some of the 8 minutes to
Yes,
other speakers.
I was informed of that, and I'll honor that agreement.
Thank you.
You have 8 minutes for the presentation. It can be divided between as many people as you want. I recommend you have swift handoffs so as not to waste any time. And we will not start the clock until the motion has been made and seconded. Please state your name and address, and and if you have a motion to offer, please make it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Catherine Wazelas, 18 Damon Avenue. And I'm here to introduce a bipartisan petition of over 150 signatures to see if the town will vote to remove Section 9.5, the 3A multifamily overlay district, from the Ipswich protective bylaw, zoning bylaw.
Is there a second? Okay. Go ahead. You have 8 minutes.
What exactly does that mean? Well, that means to remove 3A. You might all be wondering, did we just vote? Well, yes, we did. However, many of us were frustrated as many views were unable to be heard. It was the end of the night. There were some technical difficulties. Tempers and frustrations and emotions were running high. There were over 900 people who registered, and we only had 750 votes. So we're back to reconsider at a reasonable hour for everybody to have a fair opportunity to present their view. I will be handing over the rest of my time to my favorite conservative and my favorite liberal. But before I do, I'd like to say a few things from my heart. I grew up in Ipswich and I raised my family here. My great-grandparents and my grandparents came over in 1910, and I'm blessed to have many family members and friends here in Ipswich. My great-grandfather was a mason, and he did construct many of the buildings here in the early part of the century. My dad was on the finance committee for many years. He was a businessman as well as a builder who always took care to preserve the character of Ipswich. We are at risk of losing a lot more than just zoning control here. This law is an open invitation for contractors to come in by right and alter the fabric of our town permanently. It's about more than building. It's about preserving the close-knit, small character town that we have and the sense of belonging to make Ipswich special. That is why it's important to keep our zoning, amend 3A, and continue with a responsible growth and development. I do thank you for your time and consideration, and I would like to now yield my time to Dan Kelly and Chris Fiore.
Hi, Dan Kelly, 6 North Main Street. I think I'm the favorite conservative. Yes. So I think we could all agree here that if our law vests power in the local community to shape the destiny of our town, then we should not surrender it to a distant power. No kings. That's why we fought a revolution, to hold on to power. 3A adds nothing to what Ipswich already has. We're already zoned in the 3A district for multifamily housing. We already have a community development plan that puts a strong emphasis on affordable housing. 3A only takes away our local right, our right of our appointed officials to grant special use permits to build the multifamily housing and for abutters to appeal those decisions. With the adoption of 3A, that's gone. That's gone. So why would anybody be for this? And the answer is, if you really press people, it's fear. Fear. The state is going to take away our grants, our funding. Some have even raised the specter of school funding. Fear. Well, Maura Healey was not going to bow down to fear from President Trump and taking away grant money, and I don't think we should bow down to Maura Healey. And I know people say, well, the SJC decided that this law was constitutional. Yes, they did. The case isn't over. The SJC has not yet decided on whether the regulations that were promulgated by the governor were in fact consistent with the law and rather are overreaching. We have legislation, bipartisan legislation, proposed by Kristen Kasner and Bruce Tarr to amend the law to allow towns like Ipswich, who have an approved community development plan, to not lose any grant money or any other funds as a result of not failing to adopt 3A. We have two gubernatorial candidates, both highly regarded from Charlie Baker's inner circle, one of which was designated to implement the original regulations, Keneally, who are running for governor, and whose platform is to remove these regulations or drastically reduce them. Don't be like Wilmington. 3 weeks ago, it voted it down. Be like Wilmington and have the courage to face the fear, because the story is not yet over. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Chris Florio, 44 Fellows Road, very honored to be Kat's favorite liberal. First, I want to acknowledge that if the vote had gone the other way a few weeks ago and the proponents came back and wanted to revote it, I'd be upset. Fair enough. But I think that the reasons Kat has brought this back are valid. I had a number of friends who told me they didn't feel that their vote was counted from this room. I had friends who told me they left. They had planned to vote against 3A, but they left because they were in this room and told that votes weren't being counted. And the fact that we're all in this room together acknowledges, I think, that there were problems between the two rooms that need to be addressed. So I think it's really valid that we're back here. Of course, I realize it's an uphill battle to override a law that was passed a few weeks ago. Now that we need a 2/3 majority, when a couple weeks ago it was a simple majority. But I respectfully ask you to consider a few important points before voting on this article. First of all, even those who support 3A, and many people that I've talked to and had very respectful conversations with, who we have disagreements with, acknowledge that 3A is not about affordable housing. 3A, the town's task force asked the state if we could force 3A multifamily units to have 15% affordable housing. The state denied that. It's 10%. We already have 15% in this town. 3A is not increasing affordable housing, it's reducing it. It's really important to anybody here who thinks you're voting for affordable housing, it's really important to know that you're not. So if you support 3A, that's fine, but it's not for affordable housing. Secondly, the 3A law requires that we allow developers to build by right for multifamily units in the zones. And by right means no special permits. I'd never heard the term until very recently by proponents of 3A, mom and pop developers. But they have been saying the phrase fairly frequently in the sense that mom and pop developers will now have those onerous laws removed for health, for safety, for quality and design. I've been to a lot of zoning board meetings, I've been to a lot of planning board meetings. They almost never turn down a development, but they almost always improve the quality of development by requiring things to do with environment, to do with safety, to do with design, to do with quality, to do with the health of the people that live there. To remove that is absurd to me. The next thing I wanted to point out is that there's a lot of legislation currently being heard in our State House, including two bills that are co-sponsored by our own representatives, Bruce Tarr and Kristen Kastner. Many of them are asking to repeal 3A, but the one that Kristen Kastner's office told me is the most likely to pass is one she was involved with writing, and one that she's a co-sponsor of, and that Bruce Tarr is a co-sponsor of.
15 seconds, Chris.
Thank you. And if that bill is passed, then Ipswich, because it has an approved housing production plan by the state, could not be denied any grants. So if we vote tonight to keep 3A, it means that regardless of what happens with Kristen Kastner and Bruce Tarr's co-sponsored bill, we will still be held to the 3A law. If we vote yes tonight to this amendment, then that's it. Yeah, got it. I'm out of here. So please consider voting yes to this amendment and not accepting 3A in Ipswich.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask you to make yourself comfortable and hold your question until I get through the board recommendations, please. Select board
That's what I was going to ask. I'd like to hear from the select board, pro and con.
First of all, this is a zoning amendment under state law. It requires that the town meeting receive the recommendation of the planning board. So I'm going to begin with recognizing Mr. Lowe to give the planning board recommendation.
Good evening. My name is Mitchell Lowe, 33 Summer Street, member of the planning board. Planning board voted 4-0 to oppose this article. We supported the 3A zone article that was passed at the May annual town meeting. Since our annual town meeting, the courts have found that many of the arguments presented by the proponents of overturning the prior affirmative vote of 3A zoning are invalid. The 3A zoning bylaw incorporates good, smart growth planning concepts, such as concentrating growth in town centers to avoid sprawl, reducing the need to build in open space areas, and building away from our fragile marshlands, fishing, and clamming waterways. The 3A overlay districts apply standard planning practices in our town center for compact, transit-oriented, walkable, bicycle-friendly land use where it is already developed, having existing roads, utilities, and infrastructure. The zoning bylaw that was passed complies with the goals of the 2021 Community Development Plan, as well as the 2020 Housing Production Plan. The zoning bylaw that was passed complies with state law, keeps the town out of court, keeps the town from incurring substantial legal fees, and maintains certain state funding and grants for important projects in town. Key aspects of the Section 3A multifamily overlay zoning bylaws are as follows. The 3A overlay districts keeps the same dimensional requirements as our current zoning. Projects must adhere to the same limits on height, story, setback, and lot coverage imposed by our current zoning. For those property owners who choose to use the 3A bylaw, the 3A overlay district allows significantly fewer units that could be achieved under the current zoning. Let me say that again. The number of units allowed in the 3A overlay district is less than what can be built now. The 3A bylaw maintains that a percentage of all multifamily housing be long-term affordable, just as our current zoning does, although the specific requirements do vary in some respects. The proposed 3A zoning mandates mixed use in the overlay district that includes Market Street, which our current zoning does not. Adding more residents in our downtown commercial district will help the businesses in the downtown area by adding more potential customers and will be a critical element for the downtown area's vibrancy.
15 seconds, please.
Thank you. While the 3A bylaw allows additional housing to be developed by right, applicants are still required to go through all the site plan review process by the planning board and all other associated design and engineering reviews and input from other town boards and agencies. We will have design requirements as part of this. So thank you again. Please vote no on this article.
Thank you. My bad for not getting the clock started correctly. We'll fix that the next time. We'll go to select board recommendations. I believe there was a 3-2 vote, so we're going to hear from someone representing the 3 votes in favor, and then from 2 opposed, and each will get 3 minutes.
Sarah Player, 45 Mile Lane, Select Board. The Select Board expects Ipswich residents to follow the law. We expect residents to drive the speed limit, and we expect businesses to not sell alcohol to minors. The Select Board should also follow the law and encourage residents to do the same. 3A is now the law. Personally, when it comes to my own money, I'm not much of a gambler. As a Select Board member, gambling with town money is not an option. History shows us that state grants and loans have been essential to our operational and capital budgets. The town needs a new school, and the approximate $60 million in state funding would be critical for this important project. It would likely be the difference between building a school and not building one. We should not be willing to gamble that money or delay that project or any others. We should keep 3A and protect our state funding. We have received some new information in the last week or so, and it only strengthens the argument for 3A. The Superior Court has now clearly ruled that 3A is not an unfunded mandate. 4 weeks ago, our well-attended annual town meeting spoke and passed 3A after months of discussion, debate, and planning. We should honor that vote and the town's voice to pass 3A. 3A is the law. Non-compliance with 3A comes with severe financial penalties, and our fellow residents have already clearly spoken and approved 3A. There is no new information that supports changing course. I strongly encourage you to reject this citizen petition, to maintain 3A, and to keep Ipswich moving forward. The Select Board recommends 3-2 that you vote no on this citizen petition.
Thank you, Ms. Player. Mr. Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and through you to the members of town meeting, Mike Doherty, once again speaking in the minority position for the Select Board, however, this time in favor of the amendment in opposition of 3A. And although myself and the other member in the minority continue to fundamentally disagree with 3A's approach to housing and certainly its inability to address affordability, I would argue that 90 to 95% of the folks that came here tonight knew which way they were voting when they crossed the threshold. So I'm not going to belabor the point for or against. All I'm going to say to you tonight is vote your conscience, and once we know what the result of the vote is, let's put this division that we've seen in this community relative to 3A behind us. Thank you.
Finance Committee recommendation, Mr. Fay.
Good evening. Jamie Fay, Finance Committee, 9 Fellows Road. Is there my slide up? Can you advance the slide? Anyway, I gave a slide to the town moderator. Hopefully it made it. There are 4 reasons to vote against this article. First of all, housing is an important community need. Last Sunday's Globe showed that the cost of housing in metropolitan Boston has increased from 3 times the median household income in the 1980s to between 6 and 7 times the median household income today. Housing costs are affecting everyone, every person in this room, not just affordable housing, but housing at every income level. I suspect that most of you out there probably could not afford to purchase the house that you live in today. Second, it is the 3A zoning, which was approved a month ago, is consistent with our community development plan, which recommends amending the zoning in and near the town center to allow well-designed multifamily and/or mixed-use options by right, as Mitch of the Planning Board described. This will not change the character of Ipswich. In fact, as Mitch described, all the same controls are in place, and there'll be fewer units than we already authorize. Third, there are penalties which are real and not theoretical. The Finance Committee report has a list of the discretionary state aid which is at risk, which for this year alone is nearly $700,000 in direct grants, and the potential to lose our low-interest loans for the wastewater treatment plant, or as Sarah said, potentially jeopardize our school project. Finally, and most importantly, it is the law. It's the state law. People sometimes forget that all our zoning powers are granted to us by the state. We only have as much local control as state law allows. We do not have zoning power to prohibit churches and schools We have to accommodate cell phone towers, group homes, adult entertainment, all kinds of things in our zoning articles based on state law. So we are not autonomous. We can, however, decide where to accommodate the uses proposed, and our planning board and others have done a great job deciding the very best location to accommodate the as-of-right housing that the state has said we must include in our zoning bylaws. We voted this a month ago. What has changed? In the last 30 days, the town of Wenham and Rowley have both adopted 3A zoning after extensive debate and failure first time around. Second, the court decision was issued on June 6th.
Yep. You wrap it up, please.
Okay. So the Finance Committee recommendation is to oppose this article on a vote of 5-1. Thank you.
I hear you. When we call time, I'm going to allow just a statement of summarizing the position. There's a minority report from the Finance Committee. Mr. Milne.
Dana Milner, 6 Abbott Lane. How's that? All right, awesome, thank you. The supporting vote in the Finance Committee was based on 3 factors. The first is 3A remains an unfunded state mandate with no provision for funding the increased demand on town services such as water, electricity, police, fire, and most importantly, schools. Services that the residents of Ipswich are challenged to fund even today. So I realized that there was a court decision recently that talked about whether it's an unfunded mandate or not. But I would say whether it legally meets the requirements to be an unfunded mandate or not, the most important factor is whether the costs are direct or indirect, it's still going to impact all of you in the audience. So I think it's important to consider the impact on town services. We just had a vote tonight of $50 million for a water treatment plant. We have other things. We have an elementary school. We have a public safety facility to fund. There are lots of things coming down the road, and we have to take the consideration for the impact on town services. I consider it to be a very important factor. The second one is 3A is being touted as an engine for affordable housing, but this is extremely misleading since 90% of the new construction will actually not be affordable. The fact that Ipswich wished to make a 15% affordable threshold and the state dictated a lower 10% number demonstrates that 3A is really not about affordable housing. I think most people in the audience would agree that Ipswich does need more affordable housing, but we need to do it in a smart way. We already have zoning in place and the ability to review proposals to make sure that we have smart development in our town. And unfortunately, 3A, in its attempt to expand the growth of development in communities like ours, the town loses a lot of its control to review those projects, and we may have some things that are implemented that really the people will regret after the fact. The last factor is that 3A represents an example of heavy-handedness by the state government to coerce towns through fear tactics. At the end of the day, the citizens of Ipswich alone, and not the state, will have to live with the consequences. So it'd still be less risky to take a wait-and-see approach by learning from the experience of other towns, since the situation is still evolving. And I ask that, that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. School committee recommendation.
Diana Freehand, Spillers Lane. The school committee has 1 member recommending, and the majority of members, 6 members opposed.
Okay, any further comments from the school committee? Nope. So Mr. Engel had agreed to make time here for the 3A task force. Mr. Elliott? No? No.
It's me.
That's you. Okay, sorry.
But I think you're supposed to be Mike Jones from Affordable Housing Trust first.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Jones, 12 Mulholland Drive. I currently serve as the chair of the Ipswich Affordable Housing Trust, and I'm also a board member of the Ipswich Housing Partnership. I have served on both of these boards for over 10 years. Last week at our board meeting, Both boards unanimously voted no on Article 4, which is before us tonight. Our board members expressed their disappointment in this article and actually wondered how it was even allowed to be voted on tonight, as our vote to adopt 3A on May 13th passed by a margin that was well in excess of a simple majority. I certainly do not want to rehash what has been said tonight or what was said on the 13th regarding the town's current zoning versus the zoning required by 3A, as the facts speak for themselves. Adopting 3A in Ipswich is simply a non-issue. Rather, we all should be concerned with the ramifications and penalties of non-compliance with 3A. Before voting, I urge all of you to think about the state funding that will be at risk for our schools and many of our nonprofit organizations, as well as the costly legal fees to litigate 3A. Currently, nearly all other cities and towns subject to 3A have adopted it, which may mean the state comes down harder on those that do not comply, and I do not want Ipswich to be one of them. As many of you know, I also serve as the president and CEO of the Institution for Savings, and as an organization, we do our best to be great corporate citizens of Ipswich and our surrounding communities. What many of you may not know is how many banking laws and regulations we need to abide by, and some of them I am not in favor of, but they're the law. So to put things in perspective, we don't enjoy asking you for your license or where you got your funds or who your childhood friend was in order for you to get your account balance, but we have to abide by it because it's a rule called Know Your Customer. We must adhere to numerous laws at the bank or we face fines as a bank, and I can face them personally. I can assure you that the penalties and the cost of not adopting 3A are real and they're not threats. So let's move on with the decision that we made on May 13th at the town meeting and comply with 3A and vote no to Article 4 tonight.
I'd just like to congratulate Mr. Jones for nailing it with only 7 seconds left in his time allotted. Ms. Player, for the task force.
Yes. Earlier this year, the State Supreme Judicial Court, SJC, ruled that Section 3A is constitutional. It also ruled that the State Attorney General has the right to enforce the law through legal action and by withholding discretionary funding for communities that are non-compliant. 4 weeks ago at a well-attended annual town meeting, we voted to adopt 3A and become compliant with this law. We now have a citizen petition before us asking this town meeting to overturn it, despite the fact that the only thing that has changed between then and now is the Mass Superior Court has issued yet another ruling in support of 3A. The petitioners suggest that their petition would amend 3A, but it does no such thing. Rather, it rescinds the recently adopted 3A zoning provision in its entirety. Approving this petition would make the town non-compliant with the law and put us in jeopardy of losing critical state funding and at risk for costly litigation. When the task force developed the 3A zoning, we first looked at the 2021 Community Development Plan, which was adopted by you in 2022. The CDP calls for housing and development to be concentrated in the town center. The more we learned about 3A, the more we realized how closely it aligns to the CDP. We heard from residents that they need diverse housing options. Seniors need smaller, accessible, and economical units as they downsize. Young adults need workforce housing as they struggle to stay in their hometown. Many Ipswich families need housing that is more affordable than single-family homes. 3A facilitates the town's ability to meet these needs. The newly adopted 3A bylaw allows multifamily housing in areas in the town center that already have multifamily housing. The 3A overlay does not change the zoning that's already in place. Property owners in this area now have a choice as to which zoning option to use if they want to modify their property. Zoning is not compulsory, so if you don't want to change your property, it remains the same. All projects considered under 3A must conform to the zoning bylaw's dimensional regulations and are subject to additional development standards. The only notable difference between 3A and current zoning is that 3A allows it by site plan review, while current zoning requires a special permit. However, both review processes apply nearly all the same existing developmental standards: traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities and infrastructure, impact on neighborhood character. A similar public process and achieve largely the same result.
30 seconds, please.
Like site plan review, the planning board uses special permit approval as a way of influencing and enhancing projects, not as a backdoor way of prohibiting multifamily development. Dimensional guidelines establish limits on building height, number of stories, and setbacks. These restrictions are the same for multifamily development.
Your time. Sum up.
Okay. Just 4 weeks ago, we voted to adopt 3A. Please support Ipswich by keeping 3A zoning and voting against this citizen petition.
Thank you. Okay.
Joni Safran, Agawam Village, I move the question.
What?
I had 8 minutes for my presentation, just like they had 8 minutes for theirs. Joni.
No, everybody had 3 except for the original petition. All right, well, the question has been moved. There's a motion by Ms. Safran to terminate debate.
I assume that's the same. Oh, sorry. I assume that's the same as Mr. Engel would do. That's what.
All right, I did not recognize the speaker. Let's go to the podium to my left.
Thank you. I am very grateful for the recognition, and I know that there are other speakers here. And I want to remind people, in the previous town meeting, one of the problems was the unevenness of the discussion.
Okay. Could you state your name, please?
Yes, thank you. It's Helen Weatherall, 44 Fellows Road. I have a number of things to say, but I'll be concise and to the point. I myself, when 3A was brought to us, I was serving on the planning board, and I was interested, and actually the first thing I did was get it in my hands and read it, and I assumed, because of the housing crisis that we keep talking about, I assumed it had to be motivated by meeting the affordable housing needs. There was no mention of it, and immediately I began to ask myself, then what is driving it? And I also had an opportunity to volunteer to be on the task force. And I volunteered, let the powers that be know that I was interested, and it was made very clear to me that no, Helen Weatherall, you are not invited to be on the task force. And listening to Ms. Player, I'm reminded of the number of times I took part in citizen meetings with the task force, and how the many significant questions, always going back to the question of the numbers on the cost to infrastructure, they never would address those questions. Never, never, never. And I asked myself, what is this task force? And I think to myself, as a citizen, the 3A task force, I would think, considering the word task, would contemplate what is the meaning, what will be the impact of Section 3A to our town. We need to consider it in its full complexity. That didn't happen. What the task force is now sorted out to be, is really a cheerleader. It's been endlessly, aggressively, enthusiastically about pushing 3A. It's not about discussing it, not about listening to citizens' concerns. It's about promoting it at every moment. And it brings me to my next point, which is I've been stunned by the state's incredible aggression with 3A. And one of the things that immediately I wonder is, gee whiz, when you're using so much stick and so little carrot, that suggests that you don't fully believe in it. And that why would you assume that citizens would be so against something that's going to serve them so well? I asked that question. So I want to make my final, all right. So Today, those who are the most honest, most worthy of my respect are those who are fellow voters, fellow citizens who are not here. Those who have chosen not to attend this meeting for the reason that, as they put it, the state will do what the state wants. My opinion, my vote means nothing. Well, we're seeing that play out. We're told this is the law, and yet we're told to vote on it. Don't you see the incongruity there?
Okay.
Why do we vote on something we have to do?
To the question microphone, please state your name and address.
Yes, thank you. Michelle Jolliffe Hodge, Tunbridge Lane, Ipswich. I have a quick question. I'm a property owner. We're not allowed to water our lawn much of the time. We're trying to keep water in check so we don't run out of water, because once we do run out of water, all of our property values go down to nothing. So my question is sustainability. How much water can we support? How much water do we have to support all this additional housing?
Someone want to answer that? Ms. Player will answer the question.
I was hoping I could, Vicki Heilman, the person that studies water. She has a bias. She's biased.
Ma'am,
Go
you
ahead.
asked a question. I'm going to find you someone to answer your question. I'm not going to, this is not an inquisition, this is a town meeting, okay?
So
Ms. Player.
we heard that concern, and we asked the water director about that. She said over the past 15 years, the town's population has increased by 3%, while water consumption has decreased by 12% in the same period. She also pointed out that the type of development matters when discussing water impacts. She stated that single-family homes with lawns...
Hey, I'm going to ask, please, pause for just a minute. I would ask you to give each speaker the courtesy of the time they have been allotted and not call out or make noise or try to help me watch the time, okay? I got this. Ms. Player has the floor. Thank you. May resume.
The water director also stated that single-family homes with lawns, gardens, and pools have a bigger impact on the town's water supply than compact multifamily housing, which is more efficient.
At this microphone over here.
John Doonan, 158 Topsfield Road. I call the question.
Okay. See, it's not that hard. Question has been moved. In other words, a motion to terminate debate has been made. I'm just going to count the vote on this one. All those in favor of terminating debate, press 1 on your clicker. All those opposed, meaning those who wish the debate to continue, press 2. The voting is open. Should be open. Five seconds. Stop and count. There being 598 votes in the affirmative and 64 in the negative, debate is terminated. We come to the main motion by the petitioner. All those in favor of the motion offered by the citizens petitioners, press 1 on your clicker. All those opposed, press 2. This requires a 2/3 vote. Voting is open. Five seconds. Stop. There are 205 votes in the affirmative, 487 in the negative. The motion fails. Is there a motion to dissolve the meeting?
So moved.
Seconded? Second. All those in favor? Thank you all for being here. Thank you for tolerating my mistakes.
Election.
Please, before you all file out, just a reminder that the water filtration plant is on the ballot, the town election next Tuesday, June 24th. Your clickers and the boxes as you exit the auditorium.